What I was going to do is bring up my website real quick, since I have it up on the screen anyway. And so right now you're looking at a Pixel site. This is the home page for my website, and in here I've got up here on the top you can see I have an observatory page, and here I talk about the location, the equipment, technique, astrophotography, and some other things. So there's a little bit of good information in here. You can go in here and explore around. I've got the equipment again that I use. There's a couple of articles on basics in terms of optics and telescopes and things like that. And then I have the astrophotography gallery, which will show you some of my work in astrophotography. This is the Rosette Nebula. I've got that up there as a header, and then there's other pictures here in different acrylic, HD, canvas, and so forth. So anyway, there's some cool stuff on here you can browse around, but the main point here is the actual page that discusses the equipment, and so if you want to take a look at that, you can. And then in addition to that, I've got a couple of cool websites that I did for other projects that I had. This is a car that I built. It's a GTM Factory 5, and it's got a maintenance manual that I wrote. And anyway, this was a 5-year build. This is about 7,000 hours that it took to build this car. So there's a lot of custom work in this thing that I did. All the carbon fiber, I made the molds, did all the vacuum forming and stuff myself, and then really built the whole car and integrated a number of different computers and things like that for the entertainment, ignition, traction control, and a bunch of other things. So that talks a little bit about that. And then I've got an aircraft build, and this aircraft took me about 2 years to build. Basically build it up from started building the tail and doing all the sheet metal work, built the wings in a jig, and then built the fuselage on basically upside down in jigs as well, and then assembled all those assemblies. Did all the avionics myself. Integrated an autopilot. It does have an Lycoming IO360 fuel injected motor in it. So it's the same thing basically as a full-size airplane. Here you can get it. You can see some of the work that went into the instrument panel. There's the fuselage, and so it's kind of cool if you want to see what goes into building an airplane. Again, pixelsite.org. That's the front page if you see it. And you can just link, and there's a little bit about me in here as well. There's an about me page on here that if you want to take a look at that, you can. But I wanted to show you that as we're waiting for the equipment outside, and we'll go ahead and jump over to the wireless stuff that I'm going to do tonight with Deep Sky Stacker, processing some of the narrowband images that I've got coming in. So that's it. I just wanted to show you that real quick, and we'll move on to the other stuff. Okay, we're inside right now, and we've got the guiding up, and basically what we've done is we've gone into Stellarium after the polar alignment, and we have zoomed into the Eagle Nebula, and that should come up here. You should see it pointed up here, and up there you can see the scope is on the Eagle Nebula. And if you notice here, the point or the scope is showing that it's off to the right here, and this is the issue with Stellarium that I find, is that it'll get you close, but then what happens is you have to go into Astrophotography Tool or your whatever program you're using for planetarium, and you will end up plate solving. Okay, so what I wanted to do is I wanted to cut in a little bit about plate solving, and so we've used Stellarium to get close to the object, and the next thing I'll do is I'll take a shot of the area of the sky that Stellarium put me in. So I slewed the scope over, I'm pretty close to the object I want to shoot, and then I take a shot about 5 seconds using the shoot. So I'll go to my camera, I'll check my exposure down here, and I'll set this to 5 seconds. And then I'll hit the shoot button, and what I'll do is I'll get an image like this, and then what I do is I use a program called PointCraft in APT, and that can be found right here if you go to the Gear tab. PointCraft is right here, so you select that, and it'll give you this window here, and in this window you go to the objects and basically select the object, and I'll show you that in a second. But before I do, one of the really important things that I wanted to mention is double check your settings here. There's 3 programs that APT will run as you do plate solving, depending on how you want to plate solve. So you have all Sky Platesolver, you've got a program called ASTAP, and then you've got another one called Platesolver 2. Whatever the version is, and each one of these has its own location on your hard drive. So once you download the software using these tabs here, the software will download, and then you will need to tell APT where the databases are located. And one of the tricks is when you go to the settings for these programs, you will be given, at least I think it's in the Platesolver program, where you're given an option to select the databases based on your telescope focal length and your camera sensor. So you want to make sure you have the right settings for your camera and your telescope in your Platesolver parameters. There's some that are here, there's another window that comes up, I think, if you hit the Tools tab down here, the object calculator. You want to make sure you have your right focal length and your scope diameter and camera sensor size here. And I think there's another place where you go in and you can select the databases, but make sure you go through that setup, read up on it, look at some other videos and stuff, but make sure you have this correct before you attempt to plate solve, because if you don't, it's not always easy to determine that you don't have the right database. But what will happen is the plate solving will attempt to work, but it's searching in a different database, and so sometimes it'll take a much longer time, or it won't solve the image at all. So make sure you have those loaded, and then it'll happen a lot quicker. So here we have a shot that I'm using as an example. It's the Eagle Nebula. I can be quite a bit off of this. I can be off to the side and where you would see other stars here, but I basically do the same routine. So what I do is I select the Objects tab, and then I go here and I find the, you can look at stars if you want. They're in here if you want to zero in on a particular star. And then if you want to go directly to a deep sky object, then you would select it out of this list. One thing I would warn you is that a long time ago when I started doing astrophotography, I used Stellarium, and I would get close to the object, and then I would try to move the scope around in Stellarium and then take a shot and see where I was to see how my framing was. if you plate solve and you go to the Deep Sky Object Database here, it'll put you right centered into the object, and then you can go from there. But it's a heck of a lot easier to use and a lot more accurate. So don't play around with Stellarium too much. Try the plate solving, get that nailed down, and then if you want, you can go to Stellarium after that to make minor adjustments. Anyway, you select the object here, M16, and then you go ahead and you can, if you select the auto tab, what will happen is it will take pictures, I think they're 10-second exposures, and then it will automatically move your mount, and then ultimately once it zeroes in on the target, it'll sync automatically. And then you still have to come down here and do the go-to function, which I'll show you here in a second. But anyway, so once you get the object selected, you hit solve, and again, whether you hit solve or auto or blind, it's kind of you need to research when you would use those. There is a really good video on YouTube about that. Just look up plate solving in APT, and there's plenty there. But I'm going to hit solve, and we'll see how long it takes.
Image solved.
Okay, that only took 3 seconds. So my next step would be that I would go to sync. That syncs up my mount. And then what I do, I would go down here and I would select the same object. And then I would hit go to. And then what the go to function will do is it will, if you're not directly on the object, the go to function will take a series of shots, and then at each shot it will determine how many pixels or how close you are in pixels to the image. And if it's outside the parameters that you set within APT, you can choose, I think, a range of pixels off from the center that are acceptable. And so you set that parameter, and then this will continue, I think, up to 5 times, and you can set that parameter as well. You can do it 10 times or whatever the case is, so that it continues to take pictures until it accurately finds itself directly to the coordinates that are programmed into the database. Once it's there, you're centered, and you can actually go over and double check your focus and then start your shooting routine or your sequence. But anyway, I want to show you that real quick. That's how you use PointCraft. Again, I've got a trial image here. I'm in the house now. I've already done the imaging, but I did want to run through that with you before we continue on with the video. So there you go. Right now I'm having a guiding issue, and I'm going to fix that real quick, and then I'm going to come back to that. But basically, we're on the Eagle Nebula, and we're plate solved, and focus is good, but I've got a little bit of a guiding, or I set the parameters differently, so I'm going to go ahead and get that straightened out, and then we'll come back to the video. So this is a shot of hydrogen alpha, and you can see the stars in here. What'll happen is it'll come up dark. You can see slight details of the pillars of creation right down here, and what I've struggled with, and I've mentioned it over time, is the focus. But what I do is, for the focus routine that I have, what I've been doing is I've been using the image tab up here in the top, and then image preview, and I go to 1:1, and the focal length that I'm using, 2350. It is a challenge to focus, and especially if the object is low in the atmosphere. So as you can see, these stars appear pretty fuzzy, but when and if I hold if I pull up the focus aid out of APT, this is a nice tool, and I'll typically drag it around to see what the half flux diameter and full width half maximum is for these stars. And I'll kind of determine whether or not they're suitable. If I go to the full size and fit the image, obviously the readings are going to be different. And so just be careful when you're checking your final focus on how you review it, whether you're full screen or zoomed in. It's always better to be zoomed in, because then you can really see what's going on with your focus. It's similar with a DSLR camera, where it's difficult to focus when you're zoomed out. So go ahead and zoom in, bring it up on live view or whatever the case is, and do your focus when you're zoomed into the stars. That'll really improve your how your stars appear. So another thing I wanted to mention while I have it up here is over to the right on the screen in APT, you have access to your folders, so you can review as the images are coming in. You can review your data by folder. If you notice here, there's the date of the folder, and you can click on these and it'll go in and it'll pull up the different shots for that particular session. So that's really nice. You can go in and track kind of what you're doing and the stars as you're imaging, or you can go back to other images that you may have and store it in different folders. And then while you're in here, once you select it, you can actually navigate up through the folders using this tab right here. So again, I was imaging the while I was imaging the Eagle, I've had to stop the video a number of times to deal with focus and guiding issues. And at one point I had a COM port disconnect, and that reconfigured my EQ mod. I had to go back in there and put settings in there. For some reason they dropped out. The COM port and the information for the COM port, the baud rate and so forth, went blank. And anyway, I had to put that back in there. While I was in there, I started to reconfigure, and then I decided to go ahead and just upgrade that and upgrade the EQ mod. So I'm in the process right now of reconfiguring some things right in the middle of shooting this. But I've got to get those settings back in. Okay, what I've done is I had my declination aggressiveness was way up to 100. I dropped it down to 25, and you can see that really smoothed it out. That's something I haven't had to do before. So we'll keep an eye on that. This was going on, and then boom, as soon as I made that adjustment, it went ahead and did that correction. So you can see it's looks like it's staying there. We'll keep an eye on that, but meanwhile we're going to go over to Astrophotography Tool, and while my focus is in, we're going to take another quick shot.
Exposure started.
Turn down this volume a little bit. Really had to go through a lot of new settings. And I'm on the 1 pixel scale, so it looks like it's doing really good on the guiding. So we're going to go to this. Looks like my focus is still pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and start the sequence while I've got the time. We're pretty low tonight, and I'm going to go for 10 oxygen, 10 sulfur. I'll do an HA shot real as kind of a starter, and we'll move the HA up, and then we'll do 1 exposure in HA, and I'll drop that into Deep Sky Stacker, and I'll show you that, and then we'll move on to the 10 and the oxygen. We'll see how things are looking, but I'm going to go ahead and start this sequence right now while our tracking
Filter change
is good.
Exposure started.
And hopefully I didn't speak too soon. I've got the aggressiveness set pretty low, which it seems to like. So if I go to the other scale, you can see how it's smoothed out here. So again, we'll keep an eye on that. This is better than what it was. And the RA is coming back down. Looks like the declination's a lot better than it's been. after I drop that aggressiveness down. I also have the exposure time at 2.5 seconds. That's right here. It's like they're kind of running in parallel. We'll see if we can. There, they're coming back together. It's a pretty tight group on the target here, so that's a good thing. Like to see them cross once in a while. I think I'm going to increase the RA aggressiveness slightly. Let's see what happens to that. So you can see that brought just that little bit of adjustment there, brought the RA down, but the deck is bouncing around just a little bit. Meanwhile, I've got 300-second exposures going with APT. As soon as that hydrogen alpha shot comes up, we'll drop it into Deep Sky Stacker. Okay, it looks like we're doing 360. That's what I had set in there. I thought it was 300, but we've got a little bit more time. But as we're waiting for that, I showed you Stellarium. This is pretty cool. You can zoom around, you know, for those of you that haven't seen Stellarium, you can zoom in, and again, this will get you close, and then plate solving will get you right centered into that nebula, and that plate solving really makes it nice. You don't have to mess around with framing or trying to guess where you want your telescope pointed in order to be actually zeroed in on the nebula. There's a slight difference between what Stellarium will do and what your plate solving software will do. The plate solving is much more accurate. Okay, so we have an HA image that just completed.
Started.
And I'm going to shut down Stellarium. And I'm going to zoom out on the image. I'm going to shrink the focus tool down. I don't need point craft. And we're going to zoom out on this image and see what the HA shot looks like. Okay, so this is HA, and if you want, you can bring up this preview effects and you can brighten it. And again, this is the Eagle Nebula at 2,350 millimeters in HA, and you can see I've got some really pinpoint stars there, and I'll increase the gamma there, and that gives you an idea of you know, a single shot of the pillars of creation right there. So that's really nice. And what I'll do is I'll go over here to this folder as the telescope continues its thing outside, and I go to the folder where I have the images. So I'll go to the photos here, and then I go to CCD3. I believe that this changed on me as well. We'll see. So this is 10:01 today. We'll see if I have that HA. So there's the HA shot right there. I'll pull that down into Deep Sky Stacker. And we'll do that. We'll register. We'll see how many stars we got. And then we'll stack it real quick and show you what a single image in HA looks like. I wanted to stop and show you a little bit more clearly what this looks like on the screen. I'll go ahead and go back. And then I'll show you ultimately, since we're shooting the HA right now, and I'm showing you this a little bit after the fact, I'm going to go and I'm going to show you the, again, and I think I brought this up before, but this is the HA image that I pulled out using some of the photos that I showed you right here. Another thing I find useful for focus is I can go to live view. So if you have your camera and you want to do test shots, you'll set your exposure here for however many seconds you want to shoot. But then live view can sometimes, live view, you want to make sure if you're going to use it, you drop the exposure time or the bulb seconds down to a reasonable time, like 1, 2, 3, 5 seconds maybe at the most, because what you can do is you can get a live view and you can focus with your focusing aid at the same time while you're in live view. So while you're in live view, you can bring this up and set it on a star, and then go to your gear right here, your focusing gear, and you can do your focus while you're in live view using the focusing aid. Sometimes that'll work. Another thing with APT, with the new revision 3.88, they do have a completely new automatic focusing aid, and it does the V curve. So that's new for APT. So that's a really nice function. I haven't. I just literally did this yesterday, so I uploaded downloaded the new version, loaded it up, and I played a little bit with this last night while I was shooting oxygen. But again, I had those issues, so I figured I'll wait till I'm shooting up in an area that's a little bit more clear with good tracking, and then see how that works. Another helpful hint on tracking is don't forget to have your guiding going while you're focusing. That way you're not getting any drift on the star that might give you a false signal as you're focusing. Live view does not work for whatever reason when you're zoomed 1-to-1. So if you're zoomed into the stars, your live view will not go 1-to-1. So this process that I'm talking about for focusing with this while you're in live view, you do have to be at the fit view, and so fully zoomed out. And the reason I say that is because sometimes you'll go out and it'll be you'll tell that your stars are pretty far off focus. This is mainly to get you close. Once you're close, then you can go ahead and bring your view to 1-to-1, and then you can really make the final adjustments with your automatic focuser if you want to do that. So there you go. That's APT. We'll continue on with the rest of the video that's recording out of the DSLR, but this is a direct screen view, and I'll bring this in now and then to present the stuff a little bit more clearly. And we'll continue on with the other part of the video, but I just wanted to show you that. Yeah, 360 seconds. Same time we're doing 03 out there. Those are the ones I really need to get. So we got a really good score on that. Looks like 866, 197 stars. So that's probably one of the best single shots after doing all that reconfiguring of the guiding. I'm not getting the bloated stars that I was getting, and I'm really happy that all that extra work I put in this today to reconfigure the plate solving and the stacking program and the guiding. It's something I hadn't done in months. I nearly forgot it all, but anyway, so this is the result. That's a single shot in HA of the Pillars of Creation. And so obviously there's going to be some noise in it, but the main point here is, the detail that's there is just amazing. If I did a couple shots like that, it would be pretty cool. I could stack it and remove the noise and so forth, but these are better than the other images that I have taken in the past of the Pillars of Creation. The stars are actually quite a bit smaller. They're not as bloated, and it looks like the tracking's doing well. So there you go. That's kind of what the whole routine looks like. For some reason, the dithering is really going for a long time, and I don't know what that is, but I'll figure that out. It's moving on to the next photo right now. And then I'll play a little bit more with the tracking, and we'll see what the oxygen pictures look like here in a little bit. So this is a pretty amazing shot. I've got the zoom at 1:1 on that hydrogen alpha shot that I took. Again, this is 2,350 millimeters, and if you look at the pillars, it's just amazing the detail that you can see from your backyard. I'm in Maryland, and seeing is pretty good tonight, but it's still in a suburban rural area, and I think of maybe a Bortle 3 or 4, something like that. But tonight it is pretty clear, but look at the size of those stars. They're just you know, really pinpoint, small. Tracking is going well, and that's a pretty cool image for a single shot. You can see the wisps off the top, plenty of detail. So I'm happy with that. Dithering's taking a very long time. You can see the tracking is actually doing really well. It's just for some reason the dithering takes forever. So I'll come back again and take a look at that. But I think for now, while it's going well, I am going to leave it alone. If it takes a little bit of time between shots, that's okay. But you can see the target, all the most of the dots are in the middle, so that's good. Once in a while we get a little jump or a bump or whatever, but it seems to be returning and doing what it should do. So again, once you get things working, it's better to just leave it alone, let it go. And that's it. So I think for this video, that's good. I'll break out into the other video, which is off the screen, but this is direct recorded on the screen, so makes it a little bit easier to see and clearer. And I just wanted to give you an idea there of a little bit of the routine and what it looks like on the screen. And I'll cut this out and then add it into the video that I was doing for the rest of the stuff. And I hope you guys like it. And I'll pick up when we get the other section of the video attached. Okay, we're back. And what I'm doing right now is I think I'm on number 6 or 7 on the oxygen shots. And yeah, we're on number 6 at 280 seconds. You can see this is zoomed in 1:1. Again, checking focus, I'll bring in the focusing aid. And you can see that the stars are relatively well focused, and again, this is 2,350 millimeters, and we just finished another shot. And so what I wanted to do is take you into Deep Sky Stacker and show you a stacking routine real quick. And so we'll go ahead and do that right now. So I'm going to go to the folder where the shots are coming in. Here you can see I have the oxygen shots that are coming in. We'll arrange those by type, and I'm going to select these 5. And I'm going to pull those into Deep Sky Stacker. And we've got that one HA shot that's still in here, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to the list and we're going to uncheck the HA, and then we're going to register and stack 5 oxygen shots. And some of the nights, because of the altitude of the object, it's again just above the trees. It's not that high, shooting through the atmosphere, and I was really struggling to get scores above 200. I think tonight these are going to be better just based on the improvements in the tracking and also in the focus, because some of the haze that we have had over the last week has kind of cleared out. So we'll go ahead and register these and see how these look stacked. So you'll see the routine. There's a 25-minute integration time. We'll let that do its thing. And this is just a basic example of a stacking routine. It looks like we have a good number of stars being counted, 150 to 160, something like that. 170 in some cases. We'll see. We'll see what we have here. Yeah, so we've got up to 170, and we've got some really high scores here. So it's going to go ahead and stack this image, and we'll show you an oxygen shot. These are probably some of the best that I've been able to get so far. And the funny thing is, it's so late in the season right now that I'm pretty impressed with the setup tonight. Definitely better than it's been for the whole time that I've been shooting, actually. And that was just taking the time to take a deep dive into all the software, update the software. APT's updated, the guiding software is updated. I'm tracking on multiple stars now. The mount, I went through all that, and just kind of refresh myself. It's been so long since I've been through all the software. So I'd recommend that if you start getting little errors here and there and things that are where your images just aren't turning out that good, go ahead and take the time to kind of refresh everything, relearn it, set it up, and just go through the pain of going through all that again. I know it's a lot of software and a lot of settings. There's a gazillion different things you have to look at, but sometimes it's worth it. So anyway, here's the oxygen shot. I haven't stretched it yet. We're going to go ahead and do that right now. I drag that slider over, and we'll see what it looks like. So again, oxygen obviously isn't going to be as bright as the hydrogen, and I can stretch it just a little more, bring out a little bit more in there, and now you can see the oxygen, it extends out all over. So that'll be blue in the image, but what I want to do is go into these stars and see what the tracking looks like. You can see it's not as noisy. I'm going to back this down just a little bit. When you start overexposing, you'll see that your stars will start to get a little bit fuzzy. So this is oxygen, so that's actually a really good oxygen shot. You can see that the hydrogen alpha drops off, or the mix is less pronounced at the bottom here, but the oxygen really is still prevalent up in the upper part of the pillars of creation. I'm going to stop chewing on that. Come on. So that's a 1 gallon milk carton the dog's chewing on there. So anyway, so this is oxygen again. Get some really fine stars in here, little itty bitty guys. So that's excellent tracking and focus at 2,350 millimeters. So there you go. Hope you like that. I'm going to go ahead and stop this part of the recording, and we'll take the rest of the pictures and I'll stack a final image so you can see that. And we'll be pretty close to the end of the video. I know it's been a long one, but hopefully you've had a chance to see some of what astrophotography is like using a Schmidt Cassegrain with all that equipment. Again, this is a couple of years into the hobby. This is after going through the basics of the basic guiding and a APO refractor telescope, which is quite a bit easier to use and set up than the Schmidt Cassegrain. So make sure you do your research. Make sure you look into what you're buying before you buy it, and also be sure to match your equipment for what you're doing. And that's it. I'm going to shut this one off, and I might have a little bit left to go on the video, and that'll be it for this one. Okay, this is the last shot I'm doing tonight in oxygen, and what I've done is I've taken them in. So I've got 10 exposures this time. Last time it was 5. So this is 15 minutes in oxygen, and the amazing thing here is I'm going to show you the image, and then I'm going to show you the scores that I got, which were up to 1,211 stars, which is pretty amazing compared to the images I was getting the other night, where I was down into 100 to 200 and just maybe 40 or 50 stars. But anyway, here's a stretched version of the oxygen shot. And again, you can clearly see the pillars. Quite a bit of the noise is taken out this time, and that's zoomed way in, of course, but I just want to give you an idea of the stars and the detail, and I'll go into the other stars here in the group, and then you can see the smaller stars. So this is zoomed way in at 2,350 millimeters, and you can even see the double stars, and then the little tiny stars in this part of the image. So again, this is only 10 shots, 50 minutes, oxygen, but really good detail. And then here's the for this shot, here are the scores and the number of stars. So you can see here at the top I've got 1152 and then 1070, and these were actually taken later than some of the first ones, so the focus actually improved, which, depending on your focus and what side of the focus you're on, sometimes you'll move out of focus through the night, and sometimes you'll move into focus and then out of focus through the night. On this occasion, I started out at 800 in 66, I think, was the hydrogen alpha shot, and then the oxygen shot, I think it was somewhere in the 600s, and then ultimately went up to 1,000, and then I think it's dropping back down. So this 125 shot, I'm already between the trees shooting the last shot. So this is just to the right of one of the trees on the property. So it's really low, but I'm still getting a high score, and that's partially because of the seeing tonight is actually pretty clear, and everything's working well. The tracking's still going good. That's excellent tracking for this setup. And I think if I go to 4, you can still see this is 1 scale, or 1 pixel scale, and it's still well within the 1 pixel, or even half a pixel, as you can see up here in the target. So I'm happy with that. If I could do that every time, that would be great, but that's ultimately what you want to get to. And then here's the zoomed in image, and as long as you can see these little tiny stars here, and they're not basically fuzz balls, then your focus is pretty good. And you know, so if I go back to Stacker and I look at that image, you can imagine the full-size image is fine at that focus. So that the stars are nice and clean, they're small, like I said, and that's really what you're aiming for. So that's it. I'm going to complete the oxygen shots tonight. I've got a couple of sulfur shots coming in, and they'll be basically, you'll see a lot of the stars in the sulfur shots, and that really brings out the stars. The HA brings out the various parts of the nebula. The oxygen is kind of in between, and the combination, I'll probably do this in Hubble palette with narrowband, and we'll see how that goes, and we'll do that next. I think the next part of this video will be the processing. So I've got a couple of nights. I'm going to finish up the shooting, and then we'll come back and see what everything, how it all goes together. That's it for tonight.